Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. Today's a beautiful spring day. It's nice and warm and in the 70s, and even our night temperatures have not been cold lately. And so I went and planted a couple of my tomato plants out. The weather forecast at the time looked great, looked like we were not going to be getting any nights anywhere near freezing. Since I planted some of my tomato plants, that forecast has changed pretty significantly, and now we are forecasted to get a night that's supposed to hit 34 degrees Fahrenheit tomorrow night. Now, that's not freezing, so theoretically we shouldn't get a frost, but that's a little too close for comfort. If they're off by a couple degrees, we could get a frost and I could lose the tomato plants that I have planted, and that's not a risk that I'm willing to take. So today I'm out in my garden. My tomato plants are right behind me. We are going to make sure that we protect those plants and make sure that we do not lose them to frost. So there's a variety of ways that people may choose to protect their plants from a random late frost like we're about to have. You can cover them, especially if it's not going to be a very significant frost or if you're not sure you're going to get a frost. Covering them with some frost fabric, a frost blanket. You know, I've even used blankets or towels, all kinds of stuff in a pinch. But I find that water insulates a lot better than air, and so if you can surround them with warm water, it's going to take a lot longer for the cool temperatures to cool off the temperature of that water compared to how long it would take to cool off the temperature of the air. Since we're not actually supposed to get a frost, it's just getting closer than I'm comfortable with, and it's not supposed to be cold for very long. I am pretty confident that these plants will be fine, even if it gets a little bit colder than predicted, because what I am planning to use is this little device called a wall of water. Now, you don't have to use something specifically designed for this purpose. If you don't have something like this, I'll show you how this works in a minute. We'll set it up around the plants. But if you don't have something like this, you could go ahead and just put a jug of warm water in with your tomato plant and then cover it. That water being included under the cover of your plant can help hold in some heat because, again, water takes longer to cool off than air, and so that will keep the surrounding air around it warmer a little bit longer. So this is actually designed for this purpose. As you can see, it's a little bit dirty. These have been sitting in my shed for a couple years. I haven't pulled these out in a few years. I did actually used to use these to start my tomato plants so that I could plant them a little bit early. I would plant them out about a month or so early and surround them with this, which would protect them from freezing temperatures. And I find that it did actually work. In some ways, it worked really well. I stopped doing it partly because I felt that it also protected the plants from things like wind, and so their stems were not as strong as I would have ideally liked. Also, it's a lot of work if you have a lot of tomato plants. Today we're only going to be protecting a few tomato plants, so setting up a few of these is not really a big deal. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my hose and I'm going to wash these all off. They have all kinds of dust and debris from my shed all over them. So we're going to wash these off. Then I'm going to show you how we're going to set those up over the tomato plants. All right, so I know it doesn't really look it, but I did just clean this. So this is ready to go around our first tomato plant. Now I'm going to share a couple tips that honestly might seem really obvious, but I didn't think of them when I first used these walls of water, and once I thought of them, they were pretty much game changers. Now here you can see the tomatoes that we're going to be protecting are in tomato cages, so that's going to provide a little bit of support for the wall of water. If you are using this and you are installing it not over a plant in a cage, but you have just put in a brand new tomato seedling that doesn't have a cage, I find the easiest way is to plant your tomato seedling, then put a large upside down pot over the tomato, and that will hold this wall of water in place while you fill it. Again, that's something that probably seems obvious to a lot of you, but for whatever reason, I didn't think of it at first. And I'm sitting there struggling to hold the thing in place while filling it with water and keeping it from falling on top of my tomato plant. Once I figured out the pot trick, it was so much easier. Another trick that probably seems incredibly obvious is when you fill this with a hose, don't just use your hose. Put a spray nozzle on it so that you can just keep turning it on and off as needed. Another trick, as I said, probably very obvious to most of you, but I didn't think of that at first, and I got very wet trying to direct my hose into these little pockets here, and yeah, it's just a lot easier if you use the nozzle. So what we're going to do is we're just going to slip this over the top of the tomato cage, and then you can see this, you might also find it called a water-filled cloche or something like that. It has all of these little pockets surrounding it. We're just going to fill each one of these with water. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to absorb the heat of the sun during the day, it's going to heat up, and then it will hold that heat in at night and create a nice warm environment for the tomato to thrive. Now, again, worth noting, if you're doing this to protect your plant from an unexpected late frost, you want to either set this up early in the morning before the frost is coming, or at least in the day, so that it has several hours of sunshine before the sun goes down at night, because the water is going to need that sun to really heat it up, otherwise it's not going to be anywhere near as effective at night. Alternatively, if you're doing this last minute, the sun's already down, you're probably going to have to fill this with warm water instead of cold water from the hose, just to make it the most effective. But for the easiest method, just use your hose and do it during the day so that the sun has plenty of time to heat it up. Now my low temperature, it's not actually expected to be a frost, but that is actually going to be tomorrow night, so it's fairly late in the afternoon today. But it will have the rest of today, and then it will have all day tomorrow's sunshine, just to really heat up and just store up basically that heat to last during that cold night. All right, so this is not going to fit very easily over the tomato cage, but you just slide it over the top, slide it down here. All right, so here we go. You can see we've got our tomatoes in here. We've got this around it. Now we're just gonna fill it up with water. Now this is a little bit of a tedious process. You can see how this is heavily leaning. If you don't have something like this tomato cage to support it, you're gonna kind of want to alternate filling up pockets on different sides, or basically filling up cells on different sides of the cloche. So I'll just go through and fill the rest of this up. Okay, so you can see how it looks when it's all filled. You can see the tomato plant inside there. So this will add a lot of insulating power. Now, as I said, I realize that not everyone has some of these lying around. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have an unexpected frost coming and you need to protect some plants, you can definitely improvise something. You could cover your plant with some sort of protective blanket and include maybe a gallon jug of warm water under there with the plant. You could make a ring of water bottles or just similar clear plastic bottles. Just fill them with water and surround your plant with them. That would work very similarly to this. Now you can see that the top of this cloche is open. If you use these early in the season, you're actually supposed to use them without a tomato cage, only fill them about 2/3 full, and they'll naturally close on the top and make a cone, so your tomato plant is completely protected. I obviously am not doing that because I have my tomato cage here, so I probably am going to bring maybe some towels or something like that out and cover the tops of all of these cloches just to really keep that heat in just for the night. So I'm setting these up early. Tomorrow evening before the sun goes down, I'm going to come out and I'm going to cover all my tomatoes with some towels just to really hold in that heat. And I'm hoping that that will do the trick. Now I do have 4 tomato plants out in the garden out here. There's 4 cherry tomatoes. I have, I think, 8 tomato plants planted on my deck. 2 of those are in small individual pots, and I will probably just bring those 2 into my house for the night. Then I have 2 really large plants that each have 3 cherry tomatoes in them. Those are really large and I won't be able to bring them into my house. So I think I'm going to improvise some sort of situation similar to what I told you guys, because with 3 tomatoes in a pot like that, I'm not sure if I really could rig up these cloches to work really well. So I think what I'm going to do is just put a water bottle in there with them and cover them with some sort of blanket to protect them. So that's my plan. We'll see how successful it is. I'm sure I will give you guys an update of how these tomatoes fare through the frost, or hopefully we don't even get a frost, but fare through the cold night really soon. So we have one night that is predicted to be 34 degrees, way too cold for my taste this time of year. And then the second night is predicted to be 39 degrees. So while we shouldn't get a frost that second night, at least I'm going to keep these protectors on through then, just in case. So hopefully this will work. So definitely check back to see the update, and I'll let you guys know how our tomatoes fared. So I hope you guys aren't hit with any unexpected cold nights the way I am, but even if you do, I hope you guys are able to pull your plants through it anyway. I hope you're having a great day, and I can't wait to see you soon. I'll see you next time.